This video is brought to you by Huel.
And I watched the full thing, everything that he said. Look, I'm open to any and all critiques. That is fine. I'm in a world where it's like everyone is allowed to have an opinion. He has an opinion on who I am and what I am as a wrestler, and that's fine. It doesn't feel like it's in good faith, if that makes sense. I think a lot of those guys, they just kind of look for the buzzwords and look for the things that are going to get clicks or whatever. I don't think he spoke a lot about like what the culture is at AEW. I don't think he knows anything about the culture at AEW. He said there's no one there for me to learn from. I think that's absolute fucking horse. You know what I mean? Like, I am learning from people every single day that I'm there. There's so many great minds there. There's Bryan Danielson there almost every week. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was just, yeah. I mean, I'm open to criticism. I just don't think it was, in the best faith, but no ill will. I'm open to critique at any and all times. I'm 26 years old. I'm still trying to learn this business, man. I have a lot more room to grow for sure.
Right, before, Stevie, we get to what you've got to say, and I know you've got a lot to say on this subject. Once again, I'm pleased to have Huel on board to sponsor this here video. My wife and I have dominated all the strawberries and cream and the cookies and cream flavours, and now we are consuming our way through the chocolate flavour Huel Black Edition. This episode couldn't be, quite frankly, fueled by anything other than Huel, because it's been a mad rush to get the script out, and I needed a great, healthy meal in under 60 seconds, and that is exactly what Huel provides you.
You're absolutely correct, James, because Black Edition Huel flavors contain the right amounts of carbs, proteins, essential fats, fibers, vitamins, and minerals, not only for a balanced diet, but also to help boost your energy and your immune system as well. Huel Black Edition powders work out at under $3 per meal. $2.65 in America to be more accurate. For loyal followers of our show, you will know that James and I only take on sponsors that we both believe in, and we're both big fans of Huel, which is why we are pleased to announce this special offer for 15% off your next Huel order using our unique link, huel.com/Stevie15. You know how I am. When I found out about this and we talked about it, I went and watched our clip, not once, but twice. I watched it because all I'm thinking is, what way did I come off? Did I come off the wrong way? Because I don't have any bad intentions or bad faith, as Kyle Fletcher put it, as we see in the show notes. I was like, what did I say wrong? Did I offend this guy? Ready to grab his number. I asked a couple of people for his number to call him and talk to him personally. And I watched it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. First and foremost, we may have talked about Kyle maybe 2 minutes out of the almost 8-minute clip, like off and on. And 90 to 95% of that is, this kid is going to be a star. This kid has it. You said he has a great physique. He has a great look. I talked about the moment on top of the cage, one of the most memorable moments that I've seen with him and Will Ospreay at the top of the cage doing a stare down. And every single time I mentioned Kyle in that particular match, which was second on the pay-per-view, it was booking related. It was creativity related or creative related. It was psychology related. Yes, there's no such thing as a perfect match, by the way. There's no such thing as a perfect wrestler. There's no such thing as a perfect show or podcast, as you put it, James, you son of a... But we can all improve. So when I do these kinds of things, all I want is the best. And Kyle, if it motivates you, like I said, for PJ and anybody else, if it motivates you to make me look like an idiot, make me look completely wrong, and you make millions upon millions of dollars, and you're a much bigger star, some people claim you're already a bigger star than I could ever hope to be, we're going to address that, how should I say, that perception is reality type thing that wrestling most of the time gets wrong. And that's why the business will always do what it does, either move here or go down and never do better. And we'll get into that. But if you got offended by it, Kyle, that's fine. If you took it personally, That's fine, because that's awesome. Because you put your whole life into this, you put your body on the line, you put everything you can into becoming the best professional wrestler you can be. And when somebody points something out and you take it personally and it's bulletin board material, that's good. You should take it personally. It's a very emotional business where you give up parts of your life. Maybe you have a family, maybe you have a girlfriend, maybe you have kids, maybe you have cats or dogs or whatever, and you leave to travel to do this and ply your craft to make memories and moments for fans. What I'm pointing out by critiquing the match was you need to basically be that star that you're capable of being. Now, as far as the match, I said it didn't need to be a 50-50 book match. I said this was a get-over match for Kyle Fletcher. So I was on your side with the match. And as a matter of fact, the other dude hulked up and he just beat him with a move. So he didn't do himself any favors either. So, in these WrestleMania kickouts on the second match of a show, I'm going to do a dedicated video about the psychology of a wrestling show, of a wrestling card, of a pay-per-view. In my opinion, the way it should go. Because there's psychology for a match, but there's also psychology for a show. My intentions are never in bad faith. If you took it that way, I apologize. All I want to do is put stuff out there and hopefully workers, which there's been many, I only want them to be better. I only want them to make more money than I could ever dreamed of. I want them to have longer careers than I was blessed to have. So that's the faith, or the kind of faith I have when I present these kinds of things.
You say bad faith there, and I think it's quote-unquote bad faith, the kind of people who also say, I'm offended by... Well, you're kind of taking the angle to choose to be offended. You ignored all the compliments, and, for what it's worth, I said the same thing. For what it's worth. I'm sure it's worth absolutely nothing.
And by the way, we don't use buzzwords. I used words that are completely relevant to your job, to the business, to everything. They weren't buzzwords. They were just words that identify what these matches, business, everything should really adhere to.
We'll get to Kyle's quotes, and he misquotes you, actually, in what he said as well. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's the kind of people, once again, to say, people who say, well, this is a bad faith quote. It's because you're offended by the quote. And the reason you're offended is because I guess you heard what you wanted to hear and got upset by it. But the fact is that, once again, if you watch the video for the most... There's something that I'm going to challenge you on with the video as well. And I already said this before we recorded as well, that I would take issue... I wouldn't take issue with you, but I'd counteract or play devil's advocate for you with. But once again, you cherry pick what to be upset by. And the thing is that, I get that everybody has an ego. If somebody said to me, and it's always in the way you say it as well. I'm not saying you, I'm saying, if anyone receives news that they don't want to hear kind of thing. It's the way it's presented as well. But I thought it was a mostly very fair way that you talked about it. But the problem with the match, and this is back to Forbidden Door 2025 in London. I think apart from the women's four-way, you said it was basically the worst match on the show, and it wasn't because of the performance. It was not because of Kyle's performance. It was because of the psychology, or the poor psychology of the match, because of the match placement and the opponent. That wasn't a knock against Kyle, other than whoever put the match together, it made no sense for the match to be like that, considering it was second on the show with WrestleMania kickouts, Hulk ups, and everything else. When it should have been, and here's the other thing, it's Forbidden Door. There's always going to be these politics. If you
you're talking about multiple promotions that are trying to keep their guys over. That's why I said I can't imagine what it's like with all these different companies. Yeah, my issue, and I think I repeated this throughout the video, was with the booking, the company, not Kyle.
So basically, and once again, we're going to use the word bad faith because Kyle said that word. I'm sure Dave Meltzer said the word as well. And we're going to get on Dave Meltzer after this. It will be my pleasure to get on this with Dave Meltzer. The comments weren't made in bad faith. The comments weren't made to get clicks, because obviously the video didn't get clicks. We generally do a lot better with our videos than that. If we wanted to get clicks, right, we talk about nothing but Travis Scott and who are the nicest guys in WWE ranked. That's what we would talk about every week if it was all about the clicks. which obviously, we want as many views as possible. But also we keep the topics very varied. And also, specifically, this was an AEW pay-per-view review show. What do you want us to do, not talk about it?
Well, I mean, if that's what they want, but I'm not going to point out, I'm not going to self-censor myself, even though I've censored plenty of people in the past with the buzz cut and the white shirt and tie. But at the same time, yeah, all I want to do is put it out there to make people better. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I was wrong about the Punk attack thing. And what's the first thing, it bothered me all week since that time. That's where we take accountability to like a high level. I watched my own clip twice to look and see, could this be taken wrong? Was this inflection wrong? Did I just get in like a funny little thing or try to be cute? Well, no, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, all I kept saying about this kid was, he's going to be a star. And if you are offended by the fact that I said you're going to be a star and you're not a star yet, you're on the second match of the pay-per-view as a champion. Go talk to Tony Khan. You deserve a better spot on the show.
Well, he's getting a better spot on the show. In fact, he's main eventing AEW All Out against Adam Page. I'd eat my hat if he won. But, he's sort of gone from second, which kind of doesn't make any sense really either, actually. Now you think about that.
Well, they did a little disservice to him there to have him jump from that to the main event without a storyline to maximize so people can invest emotionally in his character.
Well, he has been doing more promos. And listen, more compliments for Kyle Fletcher. Apart from the fact that he looks great, he moves great, he's still really young. He shaved that stupid haircut off, and it's actually done him a favour, I think. I was a bit dubious at first when someone shaves their head. Always annoys me when someone shaves the head and he's still got a good head of hair. What a waste. It's like Ariel Helwani, really pisses me off when he does that. Anyway, that being said, once again, his promo game's really improved as well, and that's something that I'm sure can be attributed partly to Don Callis as well. We'll get on Don Callis in a minute, briefly. Anyway. But once again, like, your criticism of the match can be attributed not just to Kyle. It can be attributed to pretty much anybody on the AEW roster. It can be attributed to pretty much anybody on the WWE roster. Wrestling in 2025 is this now. It's a bunch of 50-50 matches with 50-50 booking and nowhere near as much card overview of card psychology that you at some point will make a video in the future. So once again, this isn't a Kyle-centric specific criticism. Just so happened you were talking about Kyle in that clip. This can be applied to pretty much anybody in this day and age.
Yeah, and then that's what I mean. With the other guy that he wrestled with, Takahashi, I can never pronounce his name, I'm so sorry.
Takahashi.
Hiromu
Takahashi.
I actually rode with him on the Midwest tour with Ring of Honor many years back. And I actually put he was sleeping, and we put a speech bubble above him with cheeseburger because he thought cheeseburger was like the best gimmick ever. So I just did this little thing in the app. It was nothing bad. I just took a picture of him and then put it and showed it to him. He's like,
he's still
cheeseburger.
Working. Cheeseburger's still in Ring of Honor, I think.
He is? Oh,
yeah,
good for
I
him.
think so.
Good for him. I remember that first show at the Garden where he came. That's the thing. Cheeseburger, 150 pounds. People cared about him, liked him. He was entertaining. He had spots. That's the kind of thing where Kyle, with the promos, I think it's great. He's getting better. That's awesome. He's practicing in front of a mirror. He sees who he needs to say it to, what he needs to say, how it would translate if this were real kind of thing. How would I talk about this? Yeah, that's how you get it. And he'll find out too. He keeps improving on the promos. He can literally talk people into the building and go, well, wait a minute. I don't have to kill myself for 20, 30 minutes. They're already like cheering my promos. I didn't even do anything. That's the aha moment that you can have, that I want to have for you. Because guess what happens when you can cut your big bumps in half? When you can cut bumps in half in general. Sure, Dave Meltzer will be super unhappy you're not killing yourself, but at the same time, your career could potentially be doubled or more. Now you're talking people into the building, you're cutting promos, you're entertaining. God forbid you get hurt. Guess what? You can talk into one of these things and still draw money. That's what I want for you. And like I said, if it offended you in any way, whether it's warranted or unwarranted, I'm sorry. I apologize. But please, if you're still mad and offended, use that emotion to show me what an idiot and moron I am and how wrong I am about your future.
I'm going to give you a few quotes that you said on the previous video, and this just ties into what you just said. The culture of AEW is the more you do, the more you'll get, but that's not true. You've just addressed that, so I'll move on. You also talk about like a difference between Kyle Fletcher and a Will Ospreay, and basically you can use this as a compliment, or you could use it. Once again, it's just like who you are as a person, and I'm not talking about Kyle, I'm talking about anybody listening to this. I'm saying who you are as a person or a fan of what you like, you can take it as a compliment or not. Is the only difference really between Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay is timing and age. Really, for the most part. I'm going to move on. Here's the contentious bit. The most contentious bit that people once again cherry-picked and decided that, oh, you wouldn't make it in NXT. Which isn't what you said. You've been facetious to a point as well. People obviously missed the point because people want to miss the point. I won't speak for you, but here's what you said. You called Kyle Fletcher a future NXT superstar and that he needs to learn how to work. Now, their quotes. I don't think... Okay, the NXT thing is if he needs to learn how to work, don't bother going to NXT. They'll teach you how to do all the same stuff that everybody else teaches you these days, and that's to do too much, and going to NXT is going to do nothing, basically.
Yep. You know what? And just to interrupt for a second, You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was just trying to get a fresh coat of paint on him because he's being... Up until the point now that you told me he's being thrown right into the main event against Adam Page... He was being booked very laterally after the Will Ospreay match. Am I wrong?
No, you were absolutely right. So to me, it
was like when your career is laterally moving, there's only one place it can usually go. So thankfully, that's not the case with Kyle right now. But it's usually on a downward trend. If you're not going up, if you're going here, you might as well be going down most times. So I was just looking from a worker who worked some territories early in my career and said, you know what? They're not using me in this territory much anymore. Maybe I need to go to this territory. So, but you're right. NXT is basically no different than AEW. And that's why when most of these towns get to WWE, they wash out. They don't get over because they weren't taught. And I don't understand NXT's system in the Performance Center. I was there a week and this is years ago. And I'm like, it's worse now. How do you have Shawn Michaels, Terry Taylor, Robbie Brookside, Norman Smiley? Let's just stay with Shawn Michaels and Terry Taylor. Those are the finishing guys before you go to the main roster. How in the world can you not be at least a worker with a brain that has psychology learning from those two guys on the way out? So, okay, that's what I mean. We're independent of all this. And I'm willing to admit, when I said that, I was thinking as a worker going, well, where'd I go? And there with NXT, politically, by the way, if Kyle went straight to the main roster, here come the knives. If you go to NXT, you're kind of politically getting yourself aligned, whether through kissing ass, doing whatever, to be Sean's favorite, to be Matt Bloom's favorite, anything, so you can get favorable reports to go up there. So it wasn't a talent or an ability thing, but talent ability doesn't mean anything. It's who you know and who likes you, especially in WWE. And I have to think that AEW is not immune to that as well. But James, that's the point you're challenging me on. I defer to that. I give that up and say you and Kyle, whoever said it, are absolutely right.
I think that was the bit that was picked up the most, but once again, people took it wrong or wanted to take it wrong.
I didn't say you didn't know how to work.
No, the quote was he needs to learn how to work. But the thing is like, I don't think you mean in the physical sense. I think you mean, once again, you were referring to the Forbidden Door match and how that match did nothing for him when it's a pay-per-view match because, once again, WrestleMania kickouts and hulking up and all that kind of thing.
Well, I would assume Kyle's I don't know the guy, but I would assume he is trying to be generous in that match. We all try to help somebody out, or like you want to be generous, or maybe because you have so many companies and promotions keeping their talent over, that the booker or promoter there told Tony Khan this needs to happen here, and Kyle was not even a part of it. That could be a very real case. But if Kyle did opt to make it a 50-50 match and be generous to his opponent, that's great. But I'll tell you on the other side of it, I told you before with Shelton Benjamin, I'll do this move to me. I'll be like, no, you're too big. As a worker, if you were in the ring with me, Kyle Fletcher, and you were like, hey, Stevie, do this particular thing to me, then do this, and that, I'll be like, dude, you're the champion. It's second match. Everybody knows you're going over. Nobody thinks I have a chance in anything of going over. I'll put up a fight. I'll make a bit of a comeback, but it's got to be minimum 70-30, if not more towards you. That's me as a worker on a pay-per-view trying to say, this is where we're at. This is who you are right now in the company's eyes. This is who I am. This is the way I feel like the match should go.
So I don't really think, this is my opinion, then I'm going to drop in a quote of yours, is that anybody would benefit more from the AEW roster than the phrase less is more. There's a lot of people who benefit from that, of course. But anyway, here's what you said. Quote, what Kyle Fletcher needs is someone to coach him hard, not in a mean way, but say, why did you do that? Then wait for an answer. Usually, you know what you're going to get. I don't know, or it was cool. And there you go.
I'm not saying Kyle would give that answer, but majority of wrestlers would give that answer or a non-answer. And, you know, there are people there that know. One of my favorite people in the world, and what should be one of the favorite agents for anybody out there, if it's not, is Jerry Lynn.
I wrote Jerry Lynn's name on this format. I mean, you've got that dude right, because he's the same. I think I asked him when I interviewed, it's like, he knows what it's like to go too fast on the indies and people tell him to slow down. And it took him years to realise, man, they were right. To a point.
Everybody, including myself, thinks they know everything. I did the same thing when the agents told me something or other people. It's like, oh, you're just trying to get me to slow down because you can't go anymore, because you're old, because you don't get it, because it's a tale as old as wrestling time. Every era thinks that the last era didn't know anything. Then they finally, like Terry Taylor famously said, I was like, I'm just having trouble getting this. I'm having trouble. Like, what he goes, this is early. This is like ECW times. And he's like, you know when you learn how to work? You know when you learn how to truly work, unfortunately? When you get hurt. Because you're forced. You're forced to slow down, and you're forced to kind of protect the body part. You learn how to defend yourself in a way that's kind of like in a work sense, but you can do things, and you're thinking more about the injury and how can I can't do that. So you do the process of elimination, whether you like it or not, and then you go, well, wait a minute. I'm not hurt. I'm not sore. That was easy. And the people went banana, as Pat Patterson went. The people reacted more to that than anything. And it's another kind of like epiphany that unfortunately everybody needs to suffer through in order to learn the lesson. And I hope Kyle never gets hurt.
This is Kyle Fletcher's response. Quote, I went and watched the full thing, talking about the video from last week. Everything that he said, look, I'm open to any and all critiques. That is fine. I mean, apparently not, but there you go. He has an opinion on who I am as a wrestler, and that's fine. It just doesn't feel like it's in good faith, if that makes sense. I think a lot of those guys, they kind of look for the buzzwords and the things that are going to get clicks or whatever. Right, let me just address this as the YouTuber here. We would not make Kyle Fletcher videos every day if we want to be millionaires here. We would make it on 100 different topics, quite frankly, as evidenced by the views on the original video. So it's not a click-getting thing. It just so happens to be, you know, a critique of a video that you didn't agree with.
Well, I want to stop you right there. He has an opinion on who I am as a wrestler. I said you're going to be a star.
Yeah.
So...
And all the tools, I think. Weren't you far more complimentary, but then therefore... I mean, it's human nature. It's human nature that people don't want to take criticism, which is human nature. Very few people can, I understand. And two, to search for the negative in a sea of positives. We all do it.
Yeah, like I said, we were 90% or more positive and high on Kyle Fletcher in that clip.
Mm-hmm. The next quote, he spoke a lot about the culture, is it AEW? So whoever did the transcript's a clown here. I don't think he knows anything about the culture at AEW. He said there is nobody there for me to learn from. I think that's absolute frickin' horseshit. You know what I mean? I'm learning from people every single day that I'm there. There's so many great minds. Which is funny because I actually did an interview with Jerry Lynn. It's on WSI. It's my second to last ever interview on there. And he's constantly frustrated with the people who are not asking him his opinions and you know, using that, you know, that galaxy brain he's got for wrestling. And he's probably the best agent there. Now, I don't know if Kyle doesn't ask him his opinion or does or whatever.
Are you saying they do not ask him?
Jerry said that he's frustrated that people don't listen to his opinions. You'd have to watch the interview. It was
in other words, they're not asking him for advice, as somebody in that company said, I don't need advice.
Yeah, okay. Let's break this down. I say there's nobody there for me to learn from. That's not what you said.
That's not what I said at all.
There's a lot of people they can learn from Don, or even Tony Schiavone, or Jim Ross, or once again Jerry Lynn, or Billy Gunn, or other old heads hanging about there. There'd be some great advice there. It's the difference is like, what advice are you taking? Whose advice are you asking for? Nobody said that.
I did mention some of the previous agents like Arn Malenko and stuff like that, but also Jerry Lynn is there, and I was aware of that. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, you have a certain style, and Jerry Lynn would be perfect for an AEW style with psychology because, like you just said, Jerry Lynn was doing those cruiserweight type things, and then he matured into the worker that he was towards the end of his career. Still doing all that stuff, but filling it in with character, personality, and him and Rob had a great series of matches. But I wish even they threw a storyline in there to grab onto a little bit more of a personal issue on top of just like the amazing the athleticism they showed in the matches.
That's pretty much it. But hey, at least Kyle Fletcher watched the full video, which is a lot more than a lot of morons commenting on the previous video did, which they either got, the cherry pick quote, which, once again drives me nuts.
And I'm not going to get anybody in trouble by naming names, but I have a little bit of the idea about the culture in AEW.
Yes, I know you do, as well. And people who watch this know you do as well. And but yeah, once again, it was a lot of the usual suspects with the websites and the so-called journalists and stuff like that, sort of propagating this, and the pro AEW fans, and the pro AEW fans are obsessed with AEW and they can't take any criticism of it, that kind of thing. And this is the kind of thing where I'd like, God, I can't even be bothered addressing it because it's just so exhausting.
Could I address something?
You're shouting to a brick wall here.
Yeah, could I address something that I know probably I didn't even read that far into the notes, but I'm pretty sure everybody who has this opinion, based on my viewpoint and opinion, which is based on experience, by the way, and making the mistakes as a young wrestler, trying to not have the next generation repeat the stupid mistakes I made and made even more money. I got to keep repeating that. I know the point of contention that they're all going to say. By the way, what I do is I look at logically, I look in my eyes, I use my experience to critique. What they do is diagnose me as a fake wrestler losing fake matches. Therefore, I don't know anything. I never won the world title. I never main evented WrestleMania. Therefore, I know nothing. This was the old, by the way, Triple H, famous line to push down a talent, including myself, and I heard it firsthand. He can't draw. He can't draw. Why not? Just can't draw. Can't draw. This is during the Right to Censor days, by the way, where he was also a heel, and that was my death knell. You can't be a heel at the same time as Triple H. So that's the point of contention. This guy, for lack of a better term, and I'm sure they've used it, he's a jobber. He was always a jobber. What does he know? We want somebody who's actually gone over. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, look at the NFL. If any of you even know what the NFL is, it's pro football. Are you going to criticize Bill Belichick, probably maybe the greatest coach in NFL history, because he never played quarterback, because he never scored a touchdown, because he never won a Super Bowl as a player? Might not be the greatest analogy, but you can marginalize anybody for anything. And if you're going to marginalize me for that, it doesn't get to me. I've been called a lot worse. I've been called that name forever. And these are the same people, when I was main eventing in Right to Censor and I was main eventing as part of the BWO, thought I was the greatest thing ever. I was actually a worse worker back then. So if you want to know that, I didn't have any clue what I was doing in the ECW.
I'll say what I told you, probably on the Patreon pre-show, the Stevie Richards Patreon, for people who don't do it.
Does that make sense, by the way?
Oh, absolutely. Don Callis. If we're going to marginalize and reduce people to their fake pushes on wrestling, here's what Don Callis was for the first 25 years. An indie wrestler who was a failed WWF manager for about 8 minutes and then had a non-wrestler feud with Eric Watts and TNA that was watched by 8,000 people a week. And then he was a Nepo hire back to Impact and then into New Japan and then whatever. That's, if we're going to reduce people like that, it's easy. And guess what? It's fun as well. But yeah, so why should we believe anything about Don Callis? You had a shit career, buddy. So there you go. It's easy. And the thing is, anybody with a brain who can see past all the cherry pick quotes and missing the point of all this can see, I guess, what you were getting at, the fact that you were mostly complimenting Kyle Fletcher, but there is room for improvement. Anybody who could actually see that and watch the video, unless you're, have got stake in being offended by the negative portions, I guess, which apparently is a lot of people who are either AEW fans or Kyle. And once again, right, I know maybe I'm coming off like this, like I'm being too hard on Kyle here. If someone had said the same thing to me at 26, which he's 26, I'd have the same reaction completely. I'd be like, F them. They don't know what they're talking about. Who are you to criticize that kind of thing? But I'm nearly 40 now, and also you're not criticizing me, so it's a lot easier to take it as far as looking at it from all sides, kind of thing. So I totally get his response. Don Callis is a bit more hilarious. Dave Meltzer is the saddest of the lot, and we'll get to Dave in 1 second. But once again, just to wrap it up, Kyle has a great look, great height. The sky's the limit for him. His promos are improving. He finally bought a suit and he shaved that silly haircut off. The sky's the limit for this dude. Stevie didn't mean to say something about NXT, saying you would barely make it in NXT. That's completely missing the point and getting it wrong. And then whatever misquotes you put in that quote that you said, you're wrong about those as well. Take the positives and then, I don't know, have a look at what Stevie said that you can improve on and maybe think about improving on them. What a mature attitude that might be.
He'll get there. It took me longer than they'll probably get Kyle. He gets it a lot more than I did at 26. And I said it too. 26, 23, 21, these kids that are making 6 and 7 figures and have to deliver weekly on TV, if not pay-per-views as well, that's an immense amount of pressure. My first pay-per-view was ECW Barely Legal. I didn't even know if anybody was going to watch it. It was another house show at the arena to me. There was a little bit more pressure because we actually had proper box truss lighting for once, which I was afraid was going to fall down on us because it was ECW. But I give them all the credit in the world to be able to do that. My whole thing is I want you to have an even longer career, come out of it and not have to have like injections in your spine in order to just function.